Welcome. I'm Jeanette Yoff, and I'm here to teach you the developmental tasks of adolescents 12 to 18 years old. Now, this age group, most parents dread this age group when their children become adolescents because it's typically associated with turbulence, negativity, rebellion, and change. And having the added pressure of adoption issues at this age can lead to experiences with greater trepidation. So, I'm here to help you understand the interplay between adolescent issues and adoption. That's very critical for parents to understand at this age. So, welcome, sit back and relax, and I will be teaching you the developmental tasks of adolescence.
In this next and final module 5, we are talking about the developmental issues in care for adopted children aged 12 to 18. So Jeanette, we're talking the teenage years. They're usually dramatic enough. So what might we see, particularly with kids that are teenagers that have been adopted?
Well, the teenage brain is different than all the rest. It is under major construction. There's a lot going on. So it does impact their behavior greatly. They can be high risk takers at this age. They think they are superhuman. They do extensive stunts, and they're also really engrossed in their peers, and they're wanting to be part of their group, their tribe. They want to know where they belong, who they belong to. So parents are not as important at this age. Peers are very important. They're also sensory seekers. So through the senses, they're wanting to have so many new experiences. Through the senses, through their relationships, they begin to have relationships with others, more intimate relationships, and they're really exploring themselves and their bodies. At this age also, they are going through an identity complex. If they haven't gotten their story and they don't understand their cultural history, their biological understanding of what happened to them, some may have an identity crisis, and they'll have a lot of confusion. Because to be a teenager, you're really understanding, where did I come from, where am I now, and where am I going? But if you don't have that back information, you get very confused. A lot of teenagers can go into a false self way of coping, where they try on all these different roles, trying to figure out, who am I, this chameleon-like persona. So they can have an identity crisis if there is no intervention. And then the last piece is
The fears we talked about.
well,
Right, fears
because they're
increase.
having more relationships now,
Yeah.
when there is a potential threat of another loss, whether it's a friendship or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, when they experience that loss, it is going to trigger their unresolved loss connected with the separation from their biological parent. So they will be more emotional. They will feel confused and overwhelmed by their emotions. But there's a fear of, am I going to be rejected again? So they really seek the approval of their peers. And it's very, very strong at this age. And it contributes to them feeling good about themselves, their self-esteem.
Yes.
They want to know that they fit in. Very, very strong for this.
Yes.
For teenagers.
And you have a PowerPoint that we're going to see also that also explains the questions they want answered.
Oh yes, there are 6 questions that every teenager wants their parents to answer for them. And it will help them make sense, organize their thoughts and feelings related to having been adopted.
Wonderful. So it'll be good to see these questions.
Yes.
What about interventions? What can we actually do for these kids going through this kind of turbulent time under the best of circumstances, of course, and then with this added element of them coming to terms with their identity?
Well, I will give some communication strategies, how to talk to your teenager and how to listen to your teenager, because teenagers need a lot of listening, and how to intervene, how to help them understand intimacy and relationships and healthy boundaries, and help them also understand how to manage their independence, how to take risks, how to feel secure and again safe in the world, and also allow them to make the choices so that they can develop into the young adult that we want them to.
Yes, for sure. So let's watch the video of everything that you just shared in this, for these kids in this age bracket. We're going to watch the video and the PowerPoint of so many of these points that you've made. Okay, let's go.
Great. And last but not least, for this age group, they will begin to develop a desire to search for their biological families. So you as a parent, professional, want to be a part of the communication so that they have someone to talk to about this. Otherwise, if you aren't a part of the equation, they'll go and do it by themselves. You want to be there to support them. It is highly emotional to search for your biological family, and at the same time, not knowing what the outcome is can be highly emotional as well if the outcome is not positive. So teenagers really need a support system and someone they feel that they can trust to turn to talk about that desire. Of course, it's normal to want to search for your biological family.
So Jeanette, what are some of the challenges and tasks for children of this age? So Jeanette, now we're in the teenage years. Mm-hmm. That is a bit challenging and dramatic under the best of circumstances. So what might we see with adopted children in this age group? So as far as interventions that you can do at home or in school, or if you're helping a child as a professional.
In our first slide, the developmental task number 1 of adolescence is exploring their adoption story and seeking their identity. And with identity seeking, they will ask repeatedly, who am I like and how am I different? They are learning to separate from their adoptive parents at this age, and that's called individuation. They will make different choices in their parents in dress, behavior, and are making more bold choices which help them develop their independence and their individuality. They will struggle to integrate their 2 sets of parents, and if there are missing pieces to their puzzle, this can cause some identity confusion. So I strongly suggest that parents provide their teens with their cultural, ethnic, and racial history. Very, very important at this age to gather and give them as much information as you know. They will think about their birth parents often and may over-identify with a characteristic or trait they believe their birth parent may have. This could be in fantasy or what they know. In transracial or transcultural adoption, some adolescents struggle to integrate their ethnic and cultural identities from their birth families. And the struggle is the identities they have with their birth families and the identities they do not have with their adoptive families. So they struggle to integrate these 2 differences. And helping them embrace their differences is key for adolescents, because feeling different is the worst curse for adolescents because they have such a strong desire to fit in. And when we get to the later slide, I will give you talking strategies to help integrate your child's identity. And the second developmental task of adolescents is learning how to manage their aggressive and sexual impulses. And at this stage of development, they have or are in the stages of puberty. So puberty comes along with it many mixed emotions, flooding of hormones. So they're learning how to manage all these new sensations and feelings and thoughts in their bodies and their minds and their impulses. So there's a lot going on for the emerging adolescent. And it is common for adolescents to resist their adoptive parents' authority and alternate between periods of distance and neediness and closeness. So there's regression that goes on in adolescence as well. And just know this is normal and part of their development. They will exhibit skills of self-assertion. They will learn how to have stronger boundaries in relationships because they're having more open conflicts on a daily basis in middle and high school. They're interacting with their peers on many different levels in intimate relationships, in peer relationships, in conflicts. They're learning to problem solve. They're learning to work together. So there's many on a daily basis. There's many emotional interactions happening. They need to learn in adolescence how to be in a loving relationship with another person without being totally controlling or excessively domineering. So they're learning how to balance these impulses, their aggression, and as opposed to being overly aggressive, they're learning how to assert themselves and have self and build their self-esteem and show confidence. So they're learning how to have a nice give and take, giving and receiving in relationship with others. And sexuality does become more prominent, and they will look more closely at how they were formed. They will think about their own birth parents' sexual behavior and how they came to have been born. So they will think about how did their birth mother get pregnant? Were they married? Was it a one night stand? What led to their own adoption? Were they in love? How long were they together? So they're going to question and think about their birth parents' behavior. Some adoptees have a tendency to become overly sexually promiscuous, and some choose an asexual lifestyle. And of course, there are those that are in between. So they're really exploring their own sexual identities, how they feel about sexual relationships, how they feel about their own bodies. So they may go from one extreme to the other. They're seeking out their sexual identity, which is totally normal. And some teens with many, many, many pieces to their puzzle, and that's often in international adoption, they may experience an unplanned pregnancy and also domestic. It really does not matter. Some adoptees have more information than others, but those that have so many pieces, for girls, for young women, they may find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy to help fill those many unknowns. And they may want to feel what it feels like to be pregnant. And then it is typical that some adoptees end up also creating a plan for their baby and a plan for adoption. So this is not uncommon, not to scare you, just to educate your daughters on safe sex, taking care of their bodies, and giving them as much information about their cultural, ethnic, and racial history that you may know, or what led to their birth as you know, so that they do not fill in these unknowns by having an unplanned pregnancy. That complicates things even more. They may also show more difficulty leaving home. It's not so easy to transition and leave because it triggers those feelings of loss. They may fear intimacy related to feelings of abandonment and rejection. That meaning they may not want to be in a relationship because they may fear that being in an intimate relationship will trigger feelings of abandonment and rejection. They may show a stronger desire to search for their birth families, and you will know that in the questions that they ask and wanting to learn more information. This is totally normal and part of their development. And here we come to the 6 questions adopted teens want answered. These 6 questions do come from the book, Beneath the Mask, Understanding Adopted Teens by Debbie Riley and John Meeks. And I highly recommend you do read that book. It has a wealth of information. So the first question is, why was I adopted? This is a very prominent, more questionable question at this age. And teenagers need the straight facts. Provide them with all that you know about the circumstances in their birth parents' lives at that time, which led to their relinquishment. If you do not know, please be honest and say, in fact, that you do not know. It's okay to give them all the facts that you know. Please do not fabricate or make up anything that is untrue in order to appease them or relieve them of their grief. This is a part of their process. And I also recommend that parents tell their teen if they were at the relinquishment, if they were at the birth, what they remember about the birth mother. Was she crying? Did she hold the baby? What was it like when they left the hospital? What was happening in the car? How long was the baby in the hospital? How many times did the birth mother hold the baby, feed the baby? Was she crying? Was she smiling? What did she say when she relinquished the baby? All these pieces help formulate and help the teen see how difficult or challenging this was for her. And also, it helps provide the teenager in knowing that she did care, or she was there, or this was a decision and a plan that she made for adoption, and it was not easy. Number 2 question: what is the truth about my birth parents? Again, they need the facts, or they will form fantasies that can be more damaging to a teen's identity. And they will ruminate over these fantasies that they're making. So give detailed facts of the day of their relinquishment. Like I previously said, what did the birth parents say or do when they said goodbye? What were their lives like at that time? What was their job? Where were they living? What did they do for a living? What were their talents? What were their strengths? Where were they from? Do they have brothers and sisters? Were they married, or was it a one night stand? So give them as much as you know so they can help formulate and make sense and have objectivity of their adoption story and how they came into this world. Number 3, why do I feel different from everyone else? Feeling different is excruciating for any teen. Their task is to fit in, feel a sense of belonging, a connection with their peers. So for adoptees, this is even more surmounted, more of a difficult developmental task to move through. So please have empathy for their desperation to fit in. This is normal, and support that you want to help them with this problem. And you can respond with, I'm sorry that you feel different, so different from everyone else. What can I do to help you feel more like you fit in so that you feel a greater sense of belonging? What can we do to help you? And if that's integrating and helping them learn about their cultural, ethnic, or racial history by going into Chinatown, going to a Mexican restaurant, helping them understand their native tongue, helping them go to festivals, really important to help them embrace the cultural, ethnic, or racial community that they do come from so they can feel a greater sense of belonging and knowing where they come from. Number 4, what will happen when I leave home? Because adolescence, we have the 12 to 18, and then there's the 19. 18 is a very, very sensitive year for adopted teens because it ends high school. There's many transitions. They may be going off to college. They may be pursuing other types of careers, work, jobs. They may be leaving home. They may be wanting to leave home, and at the same time, they don't want to leave home. So it's important to assure your teen that they are loved and reinforce their permanency in your family. That even though they're 18 now, they're not done being in their family. They're still a part, they still belong. So phrases like, no matter where your journey takes you, I am here for you always, we are family, I am always here, I'm a phone call away, you can call me anytime, I'm here for you, we're always connected. So reassuring your connection to help ease their separation anxiety, which is totally normal for this age. And number 5, who am I? Identity is molded from our values, beliefs, capabilities, talents, intellectual capabilities, sexual self-image, racial and ethnic heritage, our personal goals, our expectations, and our physical characteristics. So the who am I is a very loaded question And it's comprised of all of these pieces. So point out any of these facts about their identity. You are of Hispanic descent and you are musically gifted. That's who you are. Point out similarities you have with them as well as their differences. You, like me, love cooking and traveling. That's a part of who you are. I wish I could be more athletic like you. I do not have that gene. That's something that you have that makes you who you are. So really affirming, boosting their self-esteem, pointing out all these different characteristics that make them who they are. Number 6, is it okay if I think about my birth parents? Many teens have conflicted feelings of loyalty. They feel, if I think about my birth parents, is that going to hurt my parents' feelings? So let them know it is perfectly okay and understandable that yes, you can have love for your birth family and your adoptive family at the same time. You can think about them whenever you like. You do not have to divide your loyalty between both families. You can have love for both of them. You will not hurt our feelings. We understand. So affirm it's okay to think about your birth parents, give them permission, and that they can hold both of their families in their heart and in their minds. Here are some teen talking strategies. Collaborate with your teen. Work together on finding solutions with them. Teen and adolescence is about figuring things out on your own, individuating and separating. So we want to get them to think about their experience so they're preparing for adulthood. So collaborate, work together on finding solutions. Teens do not like to be directed. And be a supportive guide. Ask them how they would like to handle a challenge or a problem. Get their input first, because we have a tendency to give unsolicited advice. When teenagers are coming asking for help, but we want to help them think about the problem so that they can gain the answers and learn how to trust their own inner compass. So ask their permission first before giving advice. Would you like my advice? I have an idea how you may want to handle that. What would you like to do? Give them permission to talk about anything. Reassure them they will not hurt your feelings. Give them relief in knowing the door is always open. Reaffirm their sameness and differences. Yes, we are both good at finding things. You must get your writing talent from your birth parents. Continue to affirm their identity, and that's like similarities and differences. Be an active listener with your teen. Teens need a lot of listening to. Then, more than telling them what to do, over explaining, or getting them to understand a concept. They will come to you when they need this information. So follow their lead, ask them more questions, and be a good listener. And most of the time, when they are heard, they can hear themselves and they can figure out the solution. Answer all questions they have about their adoption stories at this age. And validate, validate, validate. I hear you, I get it, I understand, I see you, I hear you, and I receive you. It's very important to convey this verbally and non-verbally so that they know they exist, they matter, and they're heard. Very important to validate. Oh, I hear. Oh, I see you're upset. Oh, I hear how upset you are. Oh, I hear you're struggling with that. That must be so hard for you. Validate, validate, validate. So talking strategies for this age. Ask open-ended questions, not yes or no. So how are you feeling? Or how have you been feeling lately about the movie that we just saw about adoption? What was that experience like for you to hear her story? And how is that related to your story? So asking open-ended questions. Be a supportive guide. Let your child take the lead more often. Give permission to talk about anything. Reassure them they will not hurt your feelings. Give them relief in knowing the door is open. It is common for some adoptees to feel guilty about talking about their birth families or their feelings towards their birth um, history, their story, because they don't want to hurt their adoptive parents' feelings. So reassure them that they will not hurt your feelings. If you are getting triggered when your child does talk about adoption, I highly recommend you talk to an adoption competent uh, therapist or another peer adoptive parent to work through what is being triggered for you, because it can sometimes trigger your own loss if you are also experiencing your own grief and loss related to infertility. Hearing your child's loss may trigger your own loss. So it's healthy to talk with someone and work through your own loss so that you can be there to hold and contain your child's loss. Reaffirm sameness and differences. Yes, we are both good at finding things. You must get your writing talent from your birth parents, or you may get your writing talent from your birth parents. So reaffirm sameness where you have a shared strength or vulnerability. Yeah, we both don't like to pick up spiders. Or, wow, you're different from us because you're really athletic and we're not athletic. I wonder if you got that experience, that strength from your birth parents. So again, reaffirming sameness and identifying differences. Accept your child's anger. And this is an easier emotion to display at this age than sadness. And you can verbally say, I understand you're angry at your birth mom. If you know, and you're angry at your birth mom for taking drugs and you've had to live in 4 foster homes. I understand you have so much to feel angry about. You can tell me about that. So encouraging, accepting, and identifying your child's anger. If you're not correct, they will tell you. But being open to your child's anger at this age is very important. Be physically affectionate. Cuddling now is very important because in the teen years, they will want to separate normally from you. So hugs are a form of connection, give us a sense of belonging, and strengthens all of our bonds. There is what I call the 30-second hug that I encourage families to do together. 30 seconds of hugging actually releases the um, hormone, which is called oxytocin, which is the hormone for love and bonding. So if you could embrace for 30 seconds and you can both count in your mind.
This age range is 13 to 17. And as you can see, I write in bold print, this intervention must be supervised and granted permission by the parent to do so, as this uses matches and fire. We have candles, okay? So no one is liable here. This is to get a teenager to symbolize their birth family and their journey thus far. So I get these candles, again, from the 99-cent store. Just plain white. I think they have different colors too. Stickers, letter writing. It could even just be a piece of paper that I fold in half, and the child's going to write a letter. And this is to the birth parent that they're no longer living with, that they do have a connection with. And even if the connection is not a good one, they still have things that they need to say and express and say to that person. So fire is the element that represents passion and spirit and represents the flame that burns inside us. It is both a destroyer and creator, as articulated in the story of the phoenix, which is the mythical bird who burns itself to death in order to rebirth itself again from its own ashes. And that's shared with permission by Katrina Lopez. It's Soul to Soul. Now, what I love about this is fire, as I just read, represents a healing process. We're burning something and letting it go. This is a ritual. I typically give this candle ritual the day before a child's birthday. I've done this with some younger kids too. You have to do it at your discretion with the parent's permission.
And I do it the day before the birthday so the child can honor the two people that brought them into the world. The day before their birthday, because on that birthday, they want to have a good time. We want to be able to process this stuff the day before so they can enjoy their birthday and not feel such loss. Because it is typical for children who've been separated into foster care and or adoption. Birthdays are very difficult because they experience that loss. And they think of their birth family and their birth mother on their birthday because that's what that day signified. So the child decorates one for the birth mother, one for the birth father. If we know a name, great. If we don't, birth father. They write the name, put stickers, and they can write a letter to each person. Say whatever it is that they need to say. I ask that with the parent, they light it that night, the day before their birthday, and they can either read the letter out loud, they can say something. I also ask parents, the foster parents or adoptive parents, to say something as well to these two people who are important to them too. Because if we don't honor, regardless of the circumstances of why they were separated, if we don't honor these two people, we're not honoring the child. They are a part of them. They are important and they matter too. So I'll have parents say, thank you for bringing Joseph into the world. Our lives have been filled with so much joy and happiness. Thank you for having him be created. And we hope you're safe, we hope you're well, and we're thinking of you. Simple. Honoring, validating that these two people here exist in that child's world, that internal world. And it's really important to acknowledge that, externalize it, make sense of it, communicate and speak to it, and say what the child needs to say. I ask parents to do this every year, the night before the child's birthday. This candle may burn, and maybe it's burned here the night before. Well, save them, bring them back the next year, because this represents that loss. And those birth parents, just because a child's not actively speaking about it, does not mean they're not actively thinking about them all the time. So this gives them an opportunity to externalize it, express it, make sense of it again, because that's the work here. And it does need to be done over and over and over. Because we all work through our loss differently. Even the loss of a grandparent, the loss of an animal. It may take us years before we buy a new animal because we still are connected to that animal that passed. So children have to be given opportunities to grieve, to mourn, and release, and accept the loss. So that's the candle ritual. Something else, what else did I do? Oh yeah, that's right. Something else I did with teenagers, I'll be with you in a minute, is you can get like an aluminum pan, because fire, releasing and watching something burn, disintegrate into ashes, is something very, it's almost like it's a native release of some cathartic experience. To watch something burn, it's like letting a balloon go in the sky and watching it disappear. Sometimes if a child's having a lot of pain, anger towards a birth parent, I'll have a pan, and this is done outside with a parent, with an adult supervised, and they can write something on a piece of paper. We put it in the aluminum pan and we let it burn. I don't need to know what the teenager wrote on that piece of paper. What I want them to do is get it out, whatever it is, release it to the universe. Where does fire come from? How does it it's an element that helps things disintegrate. Let it go. So I like doing that with teenagers too. They can write whatever they want on a piece of paper. They can write something, say whatever they need to say. They can crumple it up, they can fold it up. We can light it and watch it burn. It's another form of releasing. I've done that with balloons too, not with lighting balloons on fire and watching them go in the sky. Where you put a note before you blow up a balloon. You put a little note in the balloon, and if it's and then we want it to get helium, and then they can let it go. But we want it to be safe for the environment, so birds don't get hurt. But also I've had helium balloons filled, and then we write things on the balloon that we're still holding on to, still angry about, still sad about, and we write it on the balloon and we watch it, we let it go. So again, forms, rituals to help a child process loss.
And here we have a list of when to seek therapy for your teen. And it can be very daunting to be an adolescent, and to be an adopted adolescent, there's a much, much greater profound sense of searching for meaning, purpose, where I've come from, who I am now, and where I'm leading towards the future. So it is wise, if they're struggling in adolescence, to get them an adoption competent therapist in your area. Very important that they're adoption competent, and get them the help that they need. They will move through this, and they will have more resiliency, more self-understanding, and a greater sense of who they are when they have someone to help them sort through the complexities of being an adopted adolescent. So when to seek therapy: if your teenager threatens to leave home or run away, has difficulty managing their anger, exhibits depression, loses interest in activities that they've previously enjoyed, they may be hermiting themselves, if they're causing self-injury or doing self-injurious behavior like cutting, when they exhibit fluctuating moods shown by sustained, prolonged negative mood and attitude, which may be accompanied by poor appetite, difficulty sleeping, or thoughts of death, suicidal ideation, or if they're abusing alcohol or drugs, or they show a strong opposition to authority, truancy, theft, or vandalism. I encourage you to seek therapy. There's no shame in seeking therapy. It's very healthy, and it promotes positive, healthy mental health development. So I wish you well in your journey parenting your adolescent adopted teen.